I saw humans unleash their rage, and it shattered everything I knew. The plasma bolt missed my head by inches. I felt the heat sear past my sensory stalks as I dove behind the crystalline barrier. My name is Velrax, and I serve as a diplomatic observer for the Galactic Union. 3 hours ago, I watched the Krell Dominion make the worst mistake in their 1,000-year history. They attacked a human colony. The distress signal came from New Portland, a farming settlement on the Outer Rim. Standard raid, the Krell commander had said over open channels demanding surrender. They wanted resources, slaves, the usual pirate demands, but they made one critical error. They killed a child in the first volley. I was stationed on the Krell flagship as a neutral observer, documenting their expansion operations. The Union needed intelligence on their movements. When the humans responded, I thought I understood what would happen. Negotiations, perhaps a skirmish, then peaceful resolution. The humans were known as traders, diplomats, builders. Every species file described them as cooperative and reasonable. I was wrong about everything. The first human ship arrived 16 minutes after the distress call. Not a military vessel, a cargo hauler called Betty's Run, piloted by a woman named Kate Morrison. She didn't hail us. Didn't demand our surrender. She just opened fire with mining lasers that shouldn't have been able to penetrate military shields. They did. The Krell commander laughed. One ship against his fleet of 40. He ordered all weapons to target Betty's Run. I watched the display as every cannon locked on. Then the human ship did something impossible. It accelerated directly toward us, still firing as the Krell unleashed everything they had. The cargo hauler exploded 3 kilometers from the flagship. The Krell cheered. I felt sick, but then I saw what Kate Morrison had really done. The explosion wasn't random, it was directional. The debris field, superheated and moving at incredible velocity, slammed into 12 Krell ships like a shotgun blast. 6 went dark immediately. The others spun out of control, their hulls shredded. The Krell commander stopped laughing. Then the second human ship arrived, and the third, and the 20th. Within an hour, 70 human vessels surrounded us. Not military ships, freighters, mining rigs, passenger liners, personal yachts, anything with an engine and weapons. They came from everywhere, answering a call I hadn't even heard. A man named Danny Cooper hailed us from a battered mining ship. His voice was calm, cold in a way that made my blood crystallize. He said 4 words that changed everything I knew about humans. You killed our children. The Krell commander tried to negotiate. He offered reparations apologies, immediate withdrawal. Danny Cooper's response was to ram his ship into the Krell cruiser beside us at full acceleration. The explosion took out 3 more enemy vessels. I watched a human deliberately die just to hurt the enemy. No species does that. No sane being trades their life so easily, but they kept coming. A woman named Lisa Martinez flew her passenger liner straight into the Krell battle formation, all engines screaming, broadcasting a message that repeated endlessly. For New Portland, for the children. She didn't even try to survive. Just aimed her ship like a missile and fired every thruster. I grabbed the Krell commander and demanded to know what they'd done on New Portland. He pulled up the footage, proud of their efficiency. I watched his soldiers shoot a 6-year-old girl who'd been playing in a field. They'd laughed about it, called it target practice. That's when I understood. Humans weren't attacking us. They were beyond attack, beyond strategy, beyond anything rational. This was something else entirely. Something primal that the diplomatic files had never mentioned. More ships kept arriving. Hundreds now. They didn't coordinate. Didn't wait for orders. Each one just threw itself at the Krell fleet with whatever weapons they had. A man named Carlos Rodriguez used his ship's gravity tethers to grab a Krell destroyer and drag it into another vessel. Both exploded. He died instantly. Didn't hesitate. The Krell started breaking formation. Their discipline shattered as they realized they weren't fighting an army. They were fighting something worse. They were fighting humans who'd stopped caring about survival. Every human ship that died took Krell vessels with them. The exchange rate didn't matter to the humans anymore. I tried to reach the Union, tried to call for peacekeepers. But a human captain named Frank Wheeler jammed all communications except one channel, the one broadcasting the footage from New Portland on repeat. Every ship in the system could see what the Krell had done, see the children who died. The Krell commander ordered a retreat. Too late. The human ships had surrounded us completely. They weren't leaving anyone alive. I realized with horror that I was going to die here too, caught between a massacre and its revenge. That's when the human military finally arrived. Part 2, the military fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel like a hammer of pure light. 47 warships, each one bristling with enough firepower to crack a moon. But they didn't immediately engage. Instead, the lead vessel, a destroyer called the Freedom's Price, commanded by Captain Linda Hayes, opened a channel to all the civilian ships. Her voice carried an authority that made my translator struggle with the emotional weight. "Stand down. We have operational command now." Not a single civilian ship responded. They kept attacking, kept dying, kept taking Krell vessels with them. A man named Gregory Stone in a converted ice hauler actually laughed over the open channel before crashing his ship into a Krell frigate. "Come get some glory yourself, Captain. We're busy." I'd never heard a civilian talk to military command like that. In any species. The chain of command was sacred, absolute. But the humans just ignored it. Linda Hayes tried again, her voice harder now. "Civilians, you are ordered to withdraw. We will handle this." A woman named Patricia Long answered from a damaged freighter that was leaking atmosphere. She was dying. Her ship was dying. But she used her last moments to align her vessel for one more ramming attack. My grandson was on New Portland. "You don't get to handle anything. This is ours." She died 3 seconds later, taking a Krell supply ship with her. The military fleet held position. I realized they weren't going to stop their own people. They were just going to watch. The Krell commander was screaming now, all 4 of his mouths working at once. He ordered his ships to target the human military fleet. Maybe they'd be more reasonable. Maybe they'd negotiate. His tactical officer locked weapons on the Freedom's Price. Linda Hayes didn't even blink. "All ships, weapons free. Show them what military-grade rage looks like." The difference was immediate and terrifying. The civilian ships had been improvising, using mining equipment and cargo holds as weapons. The military ships were purpose-built for destruction. They didn't ram. They didn't need to. Their weapons turned the darkness of space into blazing noon. A young officer named Brandon Cole commanded a frigate called the Relentless. I watched his tactical display as he systematically destroyed 12 Corel ships in 4 minutes. No wasted shots, no hesitation, just pure, efficient violence. His crew worked like a single organism, feeding targeting data and firing solutions in perfect synchronization. But it wasn't cold. It wasn't emotionless. Every destroyed enemy ship was accompanied by a name broadcast over the military channel. Brandon Cole spoke each one clearly. For Emma Grayson, age 6. For Lucas Chen, age 9. For little Sophie Martinez, age 4. The names of the dead children from New Portland. Every single one. The Krell fleet tried to scatter, tried to break through the human perimeter. They discovered that the civilian ships had been the merciful option. The military vessels hunted them with precision that spoke of decades of preparation for exactly this moment. A destroyer commanded by Captain Raymond Burke used railguns to punch through 3 Krell ships in a single shot. The hypervelocity rounds just kept going, found more targets behind the first. I pulled up my diplomatic database, searching for anything about human military doctrine. Found references to something called total war, a concept where civilians and soldiers became indistinguishable, where entire populations committed to conflict without reservation. We'd thought it was ancient history, something barbaric they'd outgrown. We were wrong. A Krell cruiser managed to damage the Freedom's Price, tearing through her port side and exposing 2 decks to vacuum. 90 humans died in seconds. Linda Hayes didn't flinch, didn't order retreat. Instead, she redirected all power to weapons and fired every missile her ship carried. 48 warheads turned the Krell cruiser into expanding gas and debris. Then she opened fire on the next ship. And the next. She kept fighting with her vessel crippled, kept killing even as her own crew died around her. A young woman named Kelly Foster took command of the port gun batteries when everyone else in her section was gone. She fired manually, by hand, targeting through a cracked view screen until another hit finally silenced her guns. The Krell were down to 18 ships now. They tried one desperate tactic. They grabbed me, the Union observer, and dragged me to their bridge. The commander opened a channel to Linda Hayes and held a plasma cutter to my sensory stalks. "Ceasefire or the diplomat dies. The Union will sanction you. You'll be declared a rogue species." I waited for the humans to pause, to consider the political implications. The Union represented 500 species and controlled 70% of known space. Killing a diplomat would have consequences that would echo for generations. Linda Hayes looked directly into the camera, looked at me, and then looked at the Krell commander. "Do it," my translator stuttered. Surely I'd misheard. But she continued, her voice like stone. "Kill him if you want, but you're still dying today. Every single one of you. This stopped being about politics the moment you murdered children." The Krell commander's eyes went wide. All 4 of them. He'd expected negotiation. Expected the humans to value union law and diplomatic process. Instead, he'd just learned that none of it mattered. Not to these humans. Not today. He killed me. Or tried to. The plasma cutter burned through my secondary stocks before a missile from Brandon Cole's frigate obliterated the bridge. I survived only because the explosion threw me clear into an escape pod that automatically launched. I tumbled through space, watching the battle through the pod's small viewport. The remaining Krell ships lasted 11 more minutes. The humans gave no quarter. Took no prisoners. Every enemy vessel was hunted down and destroyed. When a Krell captain tried to surrender, the response came from a young pilot named Aaron Mitchell flying a fighter off the Freedom's price. We don't accept your surrender. We don't accept your apologies. We don't accept anything from you except your death. He said it without emotion, without rage. Just cold fact. Then he fired 2 missiles and moved to his next target. The Krell captain's ship joined the expanding debris field that had been a fleet. I watched a woman named Christine Parker ram her damaged fighter into the last fleeing Krell destroyer. She'd been hit 3 times. Her ship was a floating wreck, but she had just enough engine power left for one final acceleration. The explosion lit up the darkness. Then it was over. 62 Krell ships destroyed. Not one survived. The humans had paid a heavy price. 47 civilian vessels lost. The Freedom's price was barely functional. 6 other military ships were crippled. Over 4,000 humans dead. But they'd won. Completely. Absolutely. The Krell Dominion's expansion fleet was gone, and the humans were already moving toward New Portland, where more ships were gathering to provide aid to the survivors. My escape pod's distress beacon activated automatically. A human rescue ship, a small medical frigate called the Mercy, picked me up 4 hours later. A young medic named Nicole Stevens stabilized my injuries, her hands gentle despite everything I'd just witnessed. She didn't blame me, didn't show anger, just professional care. I asked her why. Why throw away lives so easily? Why fight with such fury over one colony? Part 3. Nicole Stevens finished sealing the medical gel over my damaged stalks before answering. Her hands moved with practiced efficiency, but her eyes held something I couldn't quite translate. Because they were ours, she finally said. And because if we don't respond like this, it tells every predator species in the galaxy that they can hurt us without consequence. The medical bay of the Mercy held 12 other survivors, all Krell, all prisoners technically, though the humans treated their wounds with the same care they showed me. A young doctor named Amanda Price worked on a Krell soldier who'd lost 3 limbs in the battle. She was saving his life. The same humans who'd just annihilated his fleet were now desperately trying to keep him breathing. I couldn't reconcile it. The fury I'd witnessed and this compassion, they seemed like different species. I said as much to Nicole. She smiled, but it was sad. We can be both. We are both. Always have been. She gestured to the Krell soldier Amanda was treating. He didn't kill those children. He was following orders, yeah, but he personally didn't pull the trigger, so we save him. We'll even treat him fairly when this goes to a war crimes tribunal. But his commanders, I said, already knowing the answer, dead. Every single Krell officer who was involved in the attack on New Portland is gone. We made sure of that. Nicole checked my vital signs on her scanner. You're going to be fine, by the way. Stalks will regrow in about 6 weeks. Through the viewport, I could see New Portland below. The colony was scarred, buildings destroyed, fields burned, but ships were landing in a steady stream. Cargo haulers full of supplies, medical vessels, construction equipment. Thousands of humans were pouring in to help, to rebuild, to heal. A man named Victor Hayes, no relation to Captain Linda Hayes, coordinated the relief effort from the surface. I listened to his communications through the medical bay's open channel. He was organizing housing for displaced families, medical care for the wounded, food distribution, trauma counseling. His voice was calm, efficient, caring. This was the same species that had just committed calculated genocide against the Krell fleet. I needed to understand, needed to report something coherent to the Union. So I asked Nicole if I could speak with one of the military commanders. She made a call, and an hour later, Captain Raymond Burke visited the medical bay. The man who'd killed dozens with a single weapons volley, who'd shown no mercy to the enemy. He pulled up a chair beside my medical bed. His uniform was scorched, one arm in a sling. He looked tired, ancient, despite probably being only 40 standard years old. What do you want to know, Observer? Everything, I said. I've read the files. Humans are peaceful, cooperative. You've been Union members for 18 years without a single military incident. You mediate disputes, you trade fairly, you follow every protocol. Then today you became something else entirely. I need to understand what I saw." Raymond Burke was quiet for a long moment. Then he pulled out a small device and projected an image. A little girl with dark hair and bright eyes. "My daughter, Lily. She's 8, loves horses, wants to be a veterinarian." He switched the image. A boy, maybe 10. "My nephew, Jake. Brilliant kid. Building robots in his garage." Another image. A woman with kind eyes. "My wife, Susan. She teaches elementary school on Earth." He put the device away. "When the Krell attacked New Portland, they killed 17 children. Youngest was 3 years old. Her name was Grace Williams. She was playing with a toy dinosaur when they shot her." His voice remained steady, but his eyes held something vast and dark. "You want to know what you saw? You saw what happens when someone threatens our families. But the civilian ships," I said, "they weren't military. They weren't even from New Portland. They came from everywhere. Some traveled for hours to get there." "Exactly," Raymond said. "That's what you need to understand. Those weren't 17 children to us. They were all our children. Every human child is our child. You hurt one, you hurt all of us. We don't have the same tribal divisions you see in most species. We used to, thousands of years ago. But we learned. We unified. Now, attack humans anywhere, and humans everywhere will respond." A young lieutenant named Melissa Chen entered the medical bay with a report for Raymond. She couldn't have been more than 25. She'd been crying recently. I could see the redness around her eyes. But her voice was professional as she delivered casualty figures. 4,216 humans dead, another 800 wounded, 47 ships destroyed or disabled beyond repair. Raymond thanked her, and she left. Then he turned back to me. "Every single person who died today volunteered. The civilians especially. They knew they probably wouldn't survive. Kate Morrison, the first pilot who arrived, she had 3 kids of her own waiting at home. She died anyway. Because she knew if she didn't respond, if humans didn't show the galaxy what happens when you hurt our children, then her own kids would never be safe. I thought about the Krell, about their expansionist policies. They'd raided dozens of species over the centuries. Took what they wanted, killed who they wanted, and faced minimal consequences. The Union issued sanctions, condemnations, sometimes small military responses, but nothing decisive, nothing final. "You're going to face consequences for this," I told Raymond. "The Union has laws, protocols. You can't just annihilate an entire fleet." "We know," he said simply, "and we'll accept those consequences. Pay the fines, attend the tribunals, make the formal apologies. But the Krell will know, and every other species will know, that humans protect their own." "Absolutely. Without reservation. Is that worth some political trouble?" "Yeah, it is." Stood to leave winced as his injured arm shifted. "One more thing, observer. You should know that our government didn't order this. Our military high command didn't plan it. Hell, most of them didn't even know about the attack until the civilian ships were already engaging." This response came from the bottom up, from regular people who heard that children had been killed and decided individually to do something about it. That was somehow more frightening than anything else. This wasn't military doctrine, wasn't government policy. This was just what humans did naturally when sufficiently provoked. Raymond left, and I spent the next several hours watching the recovery effort on New Portland. A woman named Sandra Mitchell organized a memorial service for the children who died. Thousands of humans attended, standing in neat rows amid the destruction. They didn't call for more vengeance, didn't demand further blood. They just mourned, together, as one people. Then they started rebuilding. A construction team led by a man named Christopher Davis began clearing rubble. A logistics coordinator named Diane Foster set up supply chains. Teachers, doctors, engineers, farmers, they all poured in, offering expertise, offering hands, offering hope. The destroyed Krell ships were still visible in orbit, debris fields marking where each vessel had died. Human salvage crews were already at work, recovering bodies, cataloging wreckage, preparing evidence for the inevitable investigations. They treated even the enemy dead with basic respect, begging remains for proper return to Krell space. My rescue pod picked up a transmission from deep space. More human ships were arriving. Not military, just volunteers. A mining collective from the asteroid belts, a merchant convoy that had diverted from their route, a colony ship that had changed course entirely, all coming to help New Portland rebuild. This was the other side of human rage. After the fury came the healing. After destruction came creation. They were both part of the same response, the same fierce protective instinct that had driven them to such violence. Part 4. 3 days after the battle, the Union Council summoned me to give my initial report. They convened an emergency session via faster-than-light communication, all 500 member species represented. I floated in the communications chamber aboard a Union diplomatic vessel, my stalks mostly regenerated, and prepared to tell them what I'd witnessed. The council chairman, a Vrex named Sornak who'd held the position for 60 years, opened the session with unusual gravity. Observer Velrax, we have reviewed the preliminary data from New Portland. The Krell Dominion has filed formal complaints. They accuse humanity of war crimes, excessive force, and violation of 16 separate Union conventions. What is your assessment? I considered my words carefully. My report would influence how 500 species viewed humanity going forward. Airmen, council members, I witnessed something unprecedented. The humans responded to an attack on their civilians with overwhelming force. They destroyed 62 Krell vessels and killed approximately 40,000 Krell personnel. Murmurs rippled through the council. TAC representative spoke up, her scales shimmering with distress. That's genocide, observer. For a raid that killed, how many humans? 17 children, I said. The Krell killed 17 human children in their initial attack. 17? The Takesh representative's translator struggled with her shock. They annihilated a fleet over 17 deaths? That's insane. That's barbaric. A Zentari counselor joined in. We must sanction humanity immediately. This kind of disproportionate response threatens galactic stability. Every species must follow the same rules. I let them talk for several minutes. Let them express their outrage, their fear, their demands for justice. Then I interrupted. Council members, with respect, you're missing the critical point. The humans didn't respond as a government. Their military fleet arrived late. This was a civilian response. Silence fell over the chamber. Finally, Chairman Sornak spoke. Clarify, observer. The first human ships to arrive were not military vessels. They were cargo haulers, mining rigs, passenger liners. Civilians who heard the distress call and responded independently. They attacked a military fleet with improvised weapons. They died in large numbers, and they kept coming anyway. I pulled up my recordings, showed them Kate Morrison's first attack, showed Danny Cooper ramming his ship into a Krell cruiser, showed Lisa Martinez broadcasting for New Portland for the children as she flew to her death. The council watched in stunned silence. These weren't soldiers, I continued. These were ordinary humans. A cargo pilot, a miner, a transport operator. They had families. They had lives. But they heard that children had been killed and they dropped everything to respond. The human military only arrived an hour later. A Quarian representative, a species known for their pacifism, spoke softly. But why? Why would civilians do this? No species behaves this way. I showed them more footage. Gregory Stone laughing as he crashed his ship, Patricia Long using her dying moments to align one last attack, showed them the names of dead children that Brandon Cole broadcast with each kill, showed them Raymond Burke's calm explanation about protecting their families. Because humans don't see themselves as separate nations or colonies or groups, I said. They see themselves as one species. An attack on any human community is treated as an attack on all humans, and they have a particular sensitivity to children. Hurting human children triggers a response that goes beyond rational calculation. Chairman Sornak's sensory organs rippled with something I couldn't interpret. Are you saying humans are inherently violent? That they cannot be trusted? No, I said firmly. That's not what I'm saying at all. After the battle ended, those same humans immediately began rescue operations. They treated wounded Krell prisoners with the same medical care they gave their own people. They're now rebuilding New Portland at extraordinary speed with volunteers from across human space providing aid. I showed them footage of Nicole Stevens treating Krell wounds, Amanda Price saving a Krell soldier's life, Victor Hayes organizing relief efforts, the memorial service where humans mourned together and then immediately began reconstruction. They're capable of both extremes, I explained. Extreme violence when threatened, especially regarding their young, and extreme compassion when the threat ends. They don't hold grudges against individuals who weren't directly responsible, but they absolutely will not tolerate attacks on their civilians, particularly children. A Methian counselor whose species had recently signed a trade agreement with humanity spoke up. Observer, what would you recommend? Should we expel humanity from the Union? Impose military sanctions? I'd been thinking about this question for 3 days, thinking about everything I'd seen. The fury and the compassion. The sacrifice and the healing. No, I said. I recommend we do nothing. The chamber erupted in protests. I waited for them to quiet before continuing. The Krell Dominion violated multiple Union laws by attacking a civilian colony unprovoked. They killed children. Under our own conventions, humanity had the right to respond with military force. Yes, their response was overwhelming. Yes, it was brutal, but it was also legal. The Krell initiated hostilities. They chose their target. They killed non-combatants. But the scale, someone protested. 17 deaths versus 40,000? The scale was determined by the Krell's refusal to surrender or withdraw, I said. Human ships offered no terms because the Krell had demonstrated they would simply regroup and attack again. Every human ship that died voluntarily. Every Krell ship that died because their commanders chose to fight rather than flee. Chairman Sornak studied me carefully. You are defending them, Observer. Why? Because I understand them now, I said, and because every species in this council needs to understand them too. Humans are not aggressive. They're protective. There's a difference. They don't seek out conflict. But when conflict comes to them, especially when it threatens their children, they respond with everything they have. Every member species needs to know this. It's not a threat. It's just information that could save lives. I showed them one final piece of footage. It was from the Freedom's Price, from Linda Hayes' personal log. She'd recorded it while her ship was being repaired. Her crew was gone, her vessel crippled, and she'd just killed thousands of enemy combatants. In the recording, she sat alone in her damaged quarters. She wasn't celebrating. She was crying, quiet tears that she wiped away quickly. Then she spoke to the camera. I hope this never has to happen again. I hope every species in the galaxy learns from this that humans will protect their own, not because we want war, not because we enjoy killing, but because if we don't, if we show weakness, even once, then every predator species will see humans as prey. And I won't let that happen. None of us will. No matter the cost. She turned off the recording. The council chamber was silent. Finally, Chairman Sornak spoke. What happened to Captain Hayes? She's currently overseeing reconstruction efforts on New Portland, I said. Her ship is being repaired. She'll likely face a Union inquiry about her actions. And the civilians who attacked first? Kate Morrison's family? Danny Cooper's relatives? The human government has declared them heroes. They're being honored with the highest civilian medals humanity awards. Their families are being provided for, but the humans are also mourning them. They didn't want those people to die. They're grateful for the sacrifice, but they wish it hadn't been necessary. Part 5, the Union Council debated for 6 hours. I watched through the communication link as 500 species argued about humanity's fate. Some wanted immediate sanctions. Others wanted military restrictions. A few, surprisingly, wanted to strengthen ties with humanity precisely because of what they'd seen. The Vortan Combine, a warrior culture that respected strength, proposed a full military alliance with humanity. Their representative, a scarred veteran named Krath, spoke with admiration. These humans understand what it means to protect your own. They fight like Vortans. We would be honored to stand beside them. A pacifist species naturally opposed this. The Quarians threatened to leave the Union if humanity wasn't punished. The Takesh wanted economic sanctions. The debate grew heated, with fundamental disagreements about violence, justice, and proportional response. Then something unexpected happened. The Krell Dominion representative requested to speak. His name was Velkoth, a senior diplomat who'd served for decades. He looked tired, diminished. Council members, I've received new intelligence from our government, intelligence that changes everything. He projected data into the chamber. Communication logs, military orders, strategic assessments. The raid on New Portland was not an isolated incident. It was a test. Our military command wanted to see how humans would respond to a minor provocation. We were planning a full-scale invasion of 3 human colonies scheduled for next month. We believed humans were soft, easy targets. The chamber went silent. Velkoth continued, his voice carrying shame. The fleet at New Portland represented 1/10 of our invasion force. We were going to commit 600 ships. We were going to take 3 entire colonies as slave populations. Millions of humans, tens of thousands of children. I felt my sensory stalks curl in horror. The scale of what the Krell had been planning was staggering. And the humans had stopped it by accident, simply by responding to what they thought was a random raid. Velkov pulled up more data. Our military command reviewed the footage from New Portland. They saw what happened to our fleet. They saw civilians willing to die to protect their people. They saw a military response that held nothing back. And they canceled the invasion immediately. He paused. The human response, brutal as it was, may have saved millions of lives on both sides. If we had proceeded with our invasion, the casualties would have been catastrophic. Chairman Sornak's sensory organs rippled with confusion. Are you saying the Krell Dominion withdraws its complaint? I'm saying we were wrong, Velkov said simply. We misjudged humanity completely. We thought they were weak because they preferred peace. We thought they could be bullied because they avoided conflict. We were wrong about everything. The humans aren't weak. They're restrained, and we pushed them past their restraint. He pulled up footage from Krell command centers. Military officers watching the battle at New Portland, watching their fleet get annihilated. Their shock. Their fear. Our entire military doctrine is being rewritten. We will never attack human space again. Ever. Because now we know what happens when humans stop being diplomatic and start being human. The council chamber buzzed with conversation. A Zentari counselor asked the obvious question. So the Krell Dominion, one of the most powerful military forces in the galaxy, is backing down? Completely? Completely, Velkov confirmed. We're also offering full reparations to New Portland. We'll return all captured materials. We'll extradite any personnel involved in planning the attack who survived. We'll accept any terms the humans demand. Because we understand now that the alternative is extinction, I realized something profound. The humans hadn't just won a battle. They'd fundamentally changed the political landscape of the entire galaxy. Every aggressive species was now reassessing their strategies. Every predator culture was rethinking their targets. Because humans had demonstrated something that no diplomatic negotiation could achieve. Chairman Sornak called for a vote. Should the Union sanction humanity for their actions at New Portland? The vote was overwhelming. 470 species voted no. Only 30 voted yes. The humans would face no consequences from the Union. Instead, their actions were deemed justified self-defense against unprovoked aggression. More than that, 15 species immediately requested formal defense pacts with humanity. They wanted to be under human protection, wanted to know that if someone attacked them, humans would respond. The protective instinct that had terrified everyone was now being seen as valuable, desirable. A guarantee of safety. I filed my final report 3 weeks after the battle. By then, New Portland was almost completely rebuilt. The burned fields were replanted, the destroyed buildings were replaced. The children who survived were receiving trauma counseling from human specialists who'd arrived from Earth itself. I visited the colony one last time before returning to Union space. A young girl named Sophie Turner, who'd been wounded in the initial attack, was playing in the same field where the Krell had killed Grace Williams. She was laughing, chasing a ball with other children. Human guards stood at the perimeter, watching. Not obviously armed, but present. Always present now. Victor Hayes, who'd coordinated the relief effort, walked with me through the rebuilt colony. It's almost like it never happened, he said. Except everyone remembers. Every parent here knows how close they came to losing everything. Do you think you overreacted? I asked him. 40,000 Krell died. Your people talk about it like it was necessary, but was it? Victor stopped walking. Looked at me directly. Observer, let me tell you something about humans. We don't want to be the species everyone fears. We want to be the species everyone trusts. We want to trade, to share culture, to build things together with alien civilizations. That's who we really are. He gestured to the children playing. But if someone threatens this, threatens our kids, threatens our families, then yes, we become something else. We become something terrible. Not because we enjoy it, not because we're inherently violent, but because we learned, thousands of years ago in our own history, that sometimes the only way to protect what you love is to become absolutely unforgiving to those who would destroy it. And the Krell? I asked. The ones in your hospitals? The survivors? We'll heal them and send them home, Victor said. They were following orders. They didn't make the decision to attack. We don't blame individual soldiers for what their commanders chose. That's not who we are either. I thought about everything I'd learned. The duality of human nature, the capacity for both extreme violence and extreme compassion. The absolute protection of their young coupled with mercy for enemies who surrendered. They were contradictions that somehow made sense when viewed as a whole. What happens next? I asked. The galaxy knows what you're capable of now. Victor smiled. Now we go back to being boring. We'll keep trading, keep building, keep being diplomatic. Most species will never see the side of humanity that the Krell saw. And that's good. That's what we want. But everyone will know it exists. Everyone will know that human civilians, regular people with families and jobs and normal lives, will drop everything to protect each other. Is that a deterrent? Yeah. But it's also just who we are. I left New Portland that evening, watched the colony lights recede as my ship climbed toward orbit. The debris field from the battle was mostly cleared now, just a few pieces being cataloged by investigators. In a few months, there would be no physical trace of what happened here, but the memory would persist. Across 500 species, in military academies and diplomatic schools and strategic planning sessions and threat assessments, the story of New Portland would be told. The story of what happens when humans are pushed too far. I wrote one final note in my report. Humanity is not a threat to the Galactic Union, but they are a reminder that peace is a choice, not a weakness. They choose peace every day. They prefer peace, but they're fully capable of war, and they will wage it absolutely when necessary. Other species should remember this not with fear, but with understanding. The humans are protective, not aggressive. There's a difference, and that difference might be what saves us all. My ship jumped to faster-than-light travel. Behind me, New Portland continued its recovery. Above it, human ships maintained watch, not an occupation. Just protection, because that's what humans did. They protected their own, always, without question, without mercy for those who threatened them. But with infinite compassion for those who didn't. I had witnessed humans unleash their rage, had seen it shatter everything I thought I knew. And in the aftermath, I'd learned something more important. I'd learned that human rage wasn't random, wasn't uncontrolled. It was precise, directed, purposeful. And when it ended, when the threat was eliminated, humans went right back to being the cooperative, peaceful species everyone thought they were. The galaxy would adjust. Some species with fear, some with respect, some with newfound friendship. But they would all adjust, because humans had just announced, in the most definitive way possible, exactly who they were and what they valued. And the galaxy would be safer for it.